morning. So, welcome back. Today, we're just going to do a real quick video on transgender basics. What do I mean by this? I basically mean by, like, if you've never heard of trans, or you've only ever really heard of it once or twice, and you're not really sure what to expect, or you have maybe been told or heard this phrase, and you're like, maybe I'm trans, or you have a friend or family member that is, and you just want to learn more about it. If you are already trans or in the LGBTQ community, already educated, this will be very simple, common information for you. So feel free to watch it if you want to. If not, this is going to be more geared towards people that want to learn more, but don't necessarily know or have the background. So there's a couple things to understand. So first, let's break down the words. So transgender, right? We have this word here. We have two parts, trans and gender. Let's take the gender part. So we have sex and gender. Sex is, there's a phrase called biological sex. It's not necessarily accurate because it says your chromosomes, hormones, secondary sex characteristics. There's always one more I forget. Oh, and reproductive system. So the problem is that those change. Not all of them. No one really gets their chromosomes tested. Your hormone levels can change based on HRT and everything like that, which HRT is hormone replacement therapy. Your secondary sex characteristics, aka your breasts, lack of breasts, genitalia, stuff like that, that can change. For example, I have breasts. I've grown them due to HRT, hormone therapy, and your reproductive system can change. They've actually done successful uterine transplants in trans women down in Brazil, and it's really successful, so that might be coming more towards us. So biological sex, not really a big defined thing. So you have sex. Sex is, it's commonly referred to as your sex assigned at birth. That means that when you popped out of your mom, or test tube, or whoever, the doctor looked at your genitalia and made a guesstimation. The problem is that male and female are not one or the other. It's a range. So we all start out as female when we're being born. And then at about week 12, the chromosomes that are in the cell in the egg are starting to tell the developing fetus how to develop. And so currently at this point in time, up to 12 weeks, the nervous system has not fully developed, but has started to. And it's developing along a female path. Now, at 12 weeks, there's a gene called the SRY gene on the Y chromosome. And this gene basically is turned on or off. When it's on, this gene tells the fetus to start developing a male body, as well as start developing male neurovascular system. When it's turned off, or it's not present, it doesn't. So that's why we can have people with XY or XX that are born with a uterus or stuff like that. Now, here's where trans comes into that play, right? So sometimes, have you ever turned on a light switch and the light bulb isn't fully working and it's kind of flickering back and forth? Think of the SRY gene that way. And this is specifically for trans women. Trans men, there's another process, and these processes can be sourced and linked however you want me to do it. But yeah, this is published data. But for male to female, what I am, the male physical characteristics start developing, but the neurovascular and the nervous system continue to develop down the path of a traditional female. So you now have this disconnect where neurologically and neurovascularly you have receptors that are more susceptible to estrogen, that they act more similar to a female. That's not to say there are male-female brains. It's still up in the air because of certain biological characteristics. But essentially, imagine it this way: if a car takes diesel or unleaded ethanol gasoline. You can't put diesel in a non-diesel vehicle. You could try, it won't work very well. Now I want you to imagine that male is diesel engine, unleaded is female, and the gasoline is the hormones. The engine is the nervous system. So if you have a diesel nervous system, a traditional male where the SRY gene's fully turned on, and you put diesel in there, aka testosterone, everything works great. If you put unleaded or gasoline in, it does not work very well. When you put estrogen, when people have primarily testosterone dominant genes, it doesn't uptake properly, things don't function properly, and hence you get, female to male. And then you have now assume the gasoline engine in the car, that's female, that's a female neurovascular system with their estrogen receptors, and you try to put diesel in, because that's all you have, because you're a male body, and your body produces testosterone, aka diesel. It's not going to run properly. But then, when you insert gasoline, estrogen, all of a sudden it works great. That's a very rudimentary example of how HRT works. So, like, for example, for me, when I started HRT, before then, I felt like a hollow shell of a person. Like, I didn't have emotions, I didn't really have thoughts or feelings, I just kind of existed. I wasn't really there. I was there, but I wasn't. And I was constantly searching for this feeling of, like, just, like, feeling a person. I sat there in counseling one time and was like, Christy's my counselor, I was like, I feel like an alien looking in on the human race. And I hadn't even accepted the fact I was trans yet. Like, that was before. I just thought I was doomed. And then all of a sudden I started HRT, and a couple weeks go by, and all of a sudden I'm like, I feel things. I feel normal. It's like someone replaced the light bulb in my head with like an LED one. It's super bright now, and I can think and process things and feel better. And that's when I knew. So those are like two examples of how people develop. Often we get in these arguments of, well, gender is a social construct, and and it's a binary, but it's not necessarily a binary, and then you have sex, and then you have like the right-wing conservative Christian people saying, well, sex and gender are the same, they're interchangeable, which they're not. Commonly we use terms interchangeably, but they're not interchangeable. Like the term psychologist and psychiatrist. People use those terms interchangeably, but one is a doctor, the other one has a PhD, which are two different things. One prescribes meds, one doesn't. So when it comes to like sex and gender, you'll have people who are cisgender. Cis is same side, so it's actually an organic chemistry term. So cisgender means that like your internal workings match your external workings. When you're trans, which is opposite, your internal workings don't match your external. And what we do medically is, for trans people, we help align the internal stuff, or the external to the internal. Because we've tried to match the internal to the external, aka conversion therapy and stuff like that, it doesn't work. Think of it this way, like how do you force feed a gasoline engine to take diesel? You can't. Like, it just doesn't work. But all you have to do is, like, you can add all of the different, like, things you want, and basically you have to replace the whole engine for it to work. Or you could just add gas, and now all of a sudden, it works. You don't have a diesel vehicle now, but you've gassed one, and now it works without changing everything. Our identity, our gender identity, is stored in our brain, somewhere. Just like our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. I don't think anyone would argue that our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not stored in our brain. They are. So that would mean that, logically, your identity is stored in there too. Who you are, your personality, why you like dark chocolate instead of milk chocolate, all that stuff. So if that stuff's stored in our brain, why does it make sense to change our brain to match the body? Because that's what conversion therapy can say, oh, well, just be a man. Like, it would be like, for me, just be more manly. I'm going to be honest. I was a combat medic. I was a Cav Scout in the Army. I firefighter, EMT, paramedic, well decorated in the military, worked construction. I literally, like, checked off my entire man card, and still it wasn't working. So, it's not the fact of, like, oh, like, as a kid, I wasn't wanting to wear dresses. I wasn't playing with Barbies, mostly because it was not safe. I can remember all the way to about 4 or 5 years old that I felt more like the girls. I felt more comfortable. Like, if you ever walk into a room that you don't really know anybody, but you find yourself slowly gravitating towards one group of people because you feel, like, connected to them somehow, that's how it felt. And if you're still struggling to kind of understand this, I know a lot of cisgendered people, they're like, I don't understand how you can be trans. What is it like? It's kind of like that idea of being sick. Imagine when you were last sick. It's really hard to imagine how it felt. You just know you felt crappy. But when you're sick, you try as you might, you can't remember what it's like feeling normal. So it's like, it's really hard if you don't feel that way to understand and feel how we feel. But being transgender it's not a mental illness. It's not this like huge psychological problem. It's not a snowflake issue, whatever you want to call it. Being transgender is just a part of biology. Like how we have mutations and changes in our DNA all the time. This is just a part of it. And the fact that we have this capability of allowing people to take hormones and to change and to have, like, the fact that we can do uterine transplants in trans women and then they can get pregnant and develop a period, that's amazing. Some people will say that science gone too far. But really, if you read the research studies, they've actually found that, like, the surgery is very simple. It's just you hook up a few arteries and veins, and that's about it. There's no, like, we have to put this implant here and this, and where you, like, someone with a fake artificial knee or, like, a fake hip has more, like, artificialness to them than someone who's trans, because everything is natural. Like, my body, the way I act, the way I am, like, the changes I've developed, only because of the estrogen in my system. I didn't get surgery yet, but I have C cups. My orgasms have changed. My sexuality has changed a little bit. So, like, things change. And it's all through natural means. It's not like we're going in and forcing things. If somebody has diabetes and they have to take insulin, you wouldn't tell them they're less of a person because their body can't produce enough insulin. But we're okay with giving them insulin shots and saying, yeah, it's just something you need. This is just something people need that are trans. Yeah, or there's a spectrum. That's a big thing. There's a bunch of different gender identities, and those are very complicated in the sense of you're just learning the basics. Just know that your identity is stored in the brain. We don't have control over our identity. Our identity is just as much of a part of us as our height, our allergies, our taste buds, like, you cannot force someone who hates the taste of chocolate to enjoy chocolate. That's not a thing, and it's a sad existence, I know. So, when it comes to people being transgender, you have to recognize it is very, very, very difficult for us to acknowledge this, especially at a younger age, because it's taught as being wrong. Imagine being taught that who you are is wrong, and that all you want from your parents is to be cared, like, to make them proud, to be accepted by them. It's just like, hey, Mom, did I make you proud of my macaroni drawing? Yes, it's great. Let's put it on the fridge. Like, that's all we want as kids. So when we have a huge part of us that we know that people speak out against, we hear parents say negative things, we see the world say negative things, of course we're not going to talk about it. Why would we? Because we think we're wrong. And, it's scary for a parent. It's scary for us. I mean, when I first started using the women's restroom, I thought I was going to die. like, people are going to, like, accuse me of perversion. It's not, there's nothing sexual about being trans. There's a fine line between sexuality and gender. Is sexuality a part of your gender identity? Yes. Just like if you are cisgendered and heterosexual, it's a part of it. I cannot take a heterosexual person and force them to be gay. Ever. And if you're heterosexual and cisgendered watching this, ask yourself, was there ever once a time in your life where you absolutely knew 100% that this isn't who you were? Yes, people do question. And that's part of growing up. That's normal. But if you question and then you decide this isn't for me, this isn't who I am, that's okay. But if you just do decide that it is, that's also okay. But I can't take someone that's heterosexual and make them like homosexual. I can't take someone that's cisgendered and make them transgendered at all. So this isn't a choice. It's not a lifestyle. This is living. This is being a person. This is being yourself. So, wrapping up the transgender basics. Being trans is not a choice any more than being heterosexual is a choice. Being trans is not a mental illness. It's just a difference in biology, just like diabetes is. And being trans is not a lifestyle. It's not just as simple as waking up and wearing women's clothes or men's clothes or however you are and look that way. There's so much more about it. People that know me now versus when they used to know me say I'm 100% different, but in a good way. They're like, you're a person now. Before it was just you were there, but you weren't really much of a person. You were nice, you did things, you helped people, but there wasn't any substance there. Whereas now, people's I've had people that are friends before and after, like, I like Erica. They're like, I really like her. You are a whole person now, and you're happy. If you're happy after you transition, then maybe you're trans. And if your friend or family member or partner ends up being trans, it's okay. Ask questions, but don't be accusatory. Don't instill doubt. There's already enough doubt as it is. Ask questions like, okay, well, what are you thinking about? Let's explore together. Let's talk. Who knows? Like, if you're a cisgendered female and you're dating a male, and then they say, hey, I think I'm trans. Okay, let's talk about it. It's better to talk about it than to have them going through your underwear drawer or something, because that's what's going to happen. It's not because there's a sexual perversion. It's because they're like, I need to try something to make sure, like, maybe if I try this and it doesn't feel right, I'll prove to myself that I'm not trans. That's a common thought. So if you just work with them, if you just, like, encourage, like, not even encourage it, just give them a space where it's like, okay, do you want to try this? Don't give judgment. Just let them do their thing. And if they like it, okay. And it's okay if you don't want to be with someone like that. And at the same time, if you have like a sibling, like a little brother or sister, like I have an older sister, and I can't imagine what it's like going for her, knowing that she had a little brother her whole life, and now she has a little sister. So it's like, it's taking it one step at a time. Be with them, support them. Just make them know that they have a friend, because it's so terrifying. The reason why people talk about regressing and like not being trans anymore is because they don't have a support system. I was lucky enough I had a decent support system. And now I do at my school. I have so many amazing friends, and I'm still learning things, and I'm learning how to be myself. And I'm 29. I have 20-year-old girls telling me, like, helping me figure things out. But I could tell you the happiest moment of my life was when I came to Sweetbriar College, because I realized I had a support system here. So if you know someone that's trans, support them, love them, help them, care for them, be kind. You don't have to understand it, but the best way to understand someone is to ask questions and let them explain it. Stay away from forums, stay away from Reddit, stay away from news sites. And especially stay away from conservative stuff because they kind of get it. They're very good at fear-mongering. I'm not I'm a moderate, but most of my friends that are conservatives, I've recognized that they also struggle with other issues as well, like as in equality issues. So don't expect conservative sites. And if your parents or loved ones are conservative and you're trans, they can come around. Just be patient. It works on both parts. But if you're a friend to someone who's trans, reach out. Tell them that you love them. Tell them that you care. Ask what you can do to help. Because I promise you, they want help. We want help. We just don't know how to ask. So yeah, so that's part 1 for trans basics. So next time, I'm going to go a little bit more advanced. We're going to talk about like the different genders and how sexuality changes and what changes HRT will come through. Have a good morning.